Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of this session today. I'm going to be talking to you about a bunch of things. Okay, so for the uninitiated, Catalyst is Zoho's pro code full stack cloud computing platform where you can build either a full stack application, a middleware, a front end, a back end, or a web or mobile app, which is powered by Zoho's tech stack. So any application that you build and deploy on Catalyst is running on the same infrastructure as your most favorite Zoho application, be it a CRM or desk. And the cool part is that you get the same kind of availability, uptime, security, and privacy on your own app built on Catalyst as you would on any other Zoho application because it's running on the same infrastructure. Now, pro code ecosystems are complex. This is a truth that we have to live with. And with newer tools coming up, it's just not making it easier. So the idea is that if you're using multiple services or multiple offerings over here, you're interacting with multiple ecosystems. While all of these tools may be great, but that just adds to the load that you have to isolate each issue, try and figure out if there's something which is not working, and then reach out to the right vendor to try and fix that. How we're looking to simplify this entire space is by bringing to you everything that you saw over here in one place. So Catalyst has a service that covers all these subtopics that I have, right from compute to data to developer services like plugins, AI/ML offerings, security, and even specialized services like scraping, browser automation, and PDF generation. Now, what sets us apart? I mean, everybody's doing the same thing. How are we different? So we're different because we're a one-stop shop, something that we established over here, that you get all of these services in one place without having to move to another vendor. It's extremely simple. I'm sure a lot of you would have had a relatively easier experience while deploying stuff on Catalyst. We have deep integrations with Zoho through our service called Signals, which I'll be talking to you about in further detail. All services in Catalyst come with auto scaling out of the box. So you build once and it's future proofed in terms of the number of users that you can cater to using the app. And all of this comes at a very transparent pay as you go pricing. So you pay only for what you use and not for the number of licenses that you're signing up for. A lot of you who must have used may have come across a few of our SDKs, APIs, the VS Code plugin that we have, and the fact that we support Java, Node.js, and Python that happen to be the most popular programming languages in the world. We didn't stop at that because we wanted to make it easier for developers. So we've introduced a lot of frameworks that you can use. So again, if you're using an Express in Node, if you're using Spring Boot struts in Java, or say something like a Django or a Python or a Flask in Python, you could bring that code as is and deploy it on Catalyst without having to make any platform-specific modifications. Now, these are a few reasons why people have liked to use Catalyst. They found it simple. They found all that they need in one place. And this has generally made development easier for them without the need to manage the infrastructure that they're building on. So now that we have a fair understanding and we've had a refresher on Catalyst, let's see how does Catalyst fit into your overall Zoho implementation? How do you scope for a use case? How do you try and understand if Catalyst is a good fit? So there are two broad areas where Catalyst can come into your existing Zoho implementation. The first one is around internal scale. So we're talking about scalable middleware that can sit between two different systems. This could be a legacy system. This could be a Zoho app, two Zoho apps, or another SaaS application in the Zoho app, in order to bridge that gap by enabling you to move a lot of data from one service to another without having to hit any limits. The second larger thought around how Catalyst fits into your Zoho implementation is around external scale. So when you're looking to extend your core Zoho operations to a larger audience, think portals, think access to customers and their customers, think vendors, think third-party employees, lead generation systems. So whenever you're wanting to have your core business operations run on Zoho, but you want a larger audience to be able to interact with that digitally without losing any data in transit. So let's spend some more time on both these thought points, on internal scale and external scale, and have a look at a few customers, their stories, what have they built, and the services that have gone behind the scenes in order to make that happen. So what constitutes internal scale? So it could be between Zoho apps. So you have, say, a CRM running and creator, where you want to move large chunks of data between the two. It could be SaaS applications and the cloud. So this could be data originating from an external SaaS app or data originating from a custom application coming in. Classic example being an e-commerce front end being connected to inventory and lots of data moving in. You're doing a flash sale. The third part would be legacy systems. So you have some legacy systems that hold a lot of information. The organization still wants to use that, but you still want that data to come into Zoho seamlessly. So let's take a look at all of these three one by one with live examples. Uh, how many of us watch OTT, something like, say, a Paramount Plus or a Netflix, uh, yep, or a Hulu? So again, this is a provider that bundles all of these applications in one and tells you that, hey, I'll give you a subscription for a week for $10, and I'll give you access to 3 apps, for that 1 week. So they had an interesting problem statement. They started to partner with broadband providers and people selling new mobile phones so that anybody who buys a new phone or gets a new connection will get a bundled subscription for a week for free. So what that led to was a significant surge in the number of signups. Now, their business operations was configured in a way that a user signs up to the service and that creates a subscription in Zoho Billing. Zoho Billing then transfers, all the information into Creator so that they can visualize that better. So their internal teams can report on that, figure out how many people have subscribed, how much money are they making. But the core subscription is being handled and created in Billing. Now, the minute that they started to see, say, a flash sale running on a new Samsung phone and a lot of subscriptions being sold with that and a lot of redemptions coming in, that's when things started to hit limits in terms of the number of records that could be handled every minute. So this is where Catalyst came in. We were able to build and deploy a microservice which sat between Billing and Creator to take all the inputs from Billing in real time, create a queue out of that, have an output structure made in order to not surpass any limits at the target end, which was Creator, and make sure that no information was lost while moving from Billing into Creator. What was more interesting is that within Billing, for each transaction created, there would be multiple records created. So let's say I have 4 different modules in Billing. So ideally, those 4 modules, rather pre-Catalyst, would go as 4 different records into Creator and would consume 4 times the number of calls that it would ideally take because it's information about one subscriber. We were also able to structure that into one single row. So you get 4 different rows, create a queue, make that into one row, and then push it to Creator so that the record consumption reduces. And effectively, you're able to push updates for 100 customers instead of 25 every minute. Moving on to my next example, which is about legacy systems. So this is a customer from the Middle East who's into government services. So they constantly check the employment and the health status of people that are enrolled with their program. And they have welfare schemes that they run. So again, they have a central repository of all these people inside CRM. And their constant need is to be able to process updates and give in the right communication at the right time to these people that are part of the welfare scheme. Now, they had large volumes of data. We're talking about close to about 600,000 records coming in every 4 days, which were updates coming in from their physical centers. So if I'm part of the welfare program, I would go to a physical center and give my information onto a system. That information would be processed and created as a file. This file would have my employment status, my health status, information about my family and my dependents, and their further health and employment status. This would then be uploaded into Catalyst. Catalyst would check all these 600K records against the update that was received in the last iteration, check for any updates, from the previous status quo, and then push all of these as record updates into CRM. So every week, you're processing about 1 million records. You're doing a custom logic in terms of checking if there's anybody who's lost a job within a week or anybody who's fallen ill and they need to be part of a different program to make sure that only the right information is uploaded within CRM without overloading that system. So this is where we talk about internal scale again between a on-prem service and a Zoho application being CRM. My third example. How many of us have bought products online that require a prescription? Have you also, faced a situation where you have multiple items in your cart where some of them need a prescription, some of them don't? So this is exactly the problem that we solved for Zoho Inventory. So this is a customer who's into direct to consumer health, wellness, and nutrition products. Some of their products require a prescription, some of them do not. So they had a front end on Shopify which was taking in all the orders. So once an order was generated, instead of pushing it directly to inventory, we take it in Catalyst and check the cart for any products that require a prescription. If there's no product that requires a prescription, it was straight away relayed to inventory, which would further process the order and then connect it to the shipping provider and send it out. But if there was an item that needs a prescription, this would go into a branch flow to the in-house doctor, who would then look at the order, look at the kind of items that have been ordered, and then see if that needs a prescription. If it does, this would open a branch chain where the doctor would initiate a conversation with the customer/patient, talk to them, see if they really need that, and then issue a prescription. Once the prescription is issued, this would go as an update to Zoho inventory so that the right products could be taken out from stock, and then a custom integration with the shipping provider so that all of these items as part of the order are shipped together. So that's one example of a middleware being created between an external SaaS ecosystem and a Zoho app. So that's on internal scale. Now let's see what went behind the scenes to make this possible. So the first service is called Signals. So you'd probably be able to relate to this much better, but what Signals in Catalyst does is that it's able to connect to these 10 apps that you can see mentioned below and subscribe to things happening within these apps in real time. So let's say a lead is being created. So you're able to respond to that event being pushed to you in Catalyst in real time without consuming any API or webhook limit, without adhering to any concurrency limits. So that's like a tap that's been opened all the way between these services and Catalyst so that you can respond to events in real time. So how does this work? You set up a trigger for a service. Within that, you listen in on the events that you'd want to. So let's say we talk about CRM and a lead being generated. So I can set up a trigger for a specific CRM organization to say that wherever a lead is generated, I want to be intimated about that. Once I get that trigger, I can then filter. So let's say lead value is more than $1,000. I apply that filter. Subsequently, I can do any ETL on that. So let's say if I need to change something which has come as part of the payload for that lead, I could do that. And then set a target policy, which is what do I want to do with this information that I now have? Do I want to send it to a Catalyst function? Do I want to send it to a third-party URL? And while doing so, if I need to, kind of have a target rule, which is if I want to batch it by size, batch it by count, batch it by time, or do a custom batching, along with setting a retry mechanism. So again, this makes it really helpful for you to extract information out of any of these services that you see in real time without consuming any API or webhook limits. The second service that is helping us do these things, again, going back to the on-prem use case, is called Stratus. So Stratus is the same backend framework that runs Zoho WorkDrive. So this gives you the ability to have public and private URLs for files, gives you fast download and uploads, and you get a limit of 250 gigabytes per file. So large files that can be stored in authorized or unauthorized buckets, unauthenticated buckets, where you can share individual file URLs with people. So there have been a few use cases where applications built in either CRM or Creator have had the need to handle large files, and those files have been stored in Stratus with a download URL being passed on within that system. So if you're within another app and you want to download a file or upload a file, you're able to just pass on the file URL and access that within an existing app without moving in the entire thing to Catalyst. The next one is one of my favorites, which is called AppSale. So AppSale is our platform as a service offering. Early on in Catalyst, we got a lot of feedback from developers that, hey, I have to write code in Java, but in a specific way that Catalyst understands. So that got us thinking, and that's when we figured that we might just have a service that removes all the platform specifics from you and lets you write the code how it's supposed to in any of these frameworks that you see and deploy it just by a single click. So any application that's pre-packaged into a platform or a framework that you see over here, you're able to bring that code, upload it on Catalyst and deploy it without having to make any changes. So this allows for auto scaling. Again, number of instances that we spin up for you can go up or down according to what you'd like. Gives you flexibility because again, this is some open source code that you can pick up and deploy in case you feel that works for you. And it also gives you an independent architecture along with no infra hassles. So you're not reliant on how we would like the code to be. You write the code like how it should be for a particular framework without having to manage the infrastructure. So this makes sure that you have 100% code portability, so that if, say, a few years down the line you want to take this code out and take it elsewhere, you're able to do that. And the last service that we're going to be talking about, in the perspective of internal scale, is job scheduling. So a lot of you must be using schedulers as a native functionality of the different products that we have. Job scheduling is that backend service, but made more powerful. So again, this removes all the limits that exist in purpose-built job schedulers within products by giving you the ability to run dynamic jobs, which is jobs that occur or are triggered on the basis of a certain logic being achieved. Prioritizing of these jobs so that you can put them in a pool and you can prioritize them, that which needs to run first, which can be run later. And you're able to set these up to run as frequently as a minute. So we've seen some interesting use cases, some of which have been done by a good friend Chris over here, which involve moving data from CRM into analytics every minute. Now, let's move on to external scale. So with external scale, we're giving you the ability to run custom front ends, which are scalable, which are not linked to the number of licenses or the number of people that can access that front end, and be deployed to a larger audience where multiple people are accessing it at the same time, while it's still connected to your core Zoho implementation. So these could be connected to your Zoho apps, or these could be standalone apps that are using Zoho as the backend. So they may be connected, but somewhere in the back. So this enables you to reach your customer's customer. A lot of digitization that happens within an organization is often not translated right to the end, which makes a bit of a Chinese whisper happen in between, where there's a separate system that runs in your customer ecosystem, and there's a separate system that runs internally. And more often than not, these aren't very tightly connected, but you could do that using Catalyst and the external scale use cases that we have. So the first one is around a service management application. Now you might say that FSM does that, but again, this is made for a much larger audience. So again, the example that we have is for a brand that manufactures air conditioners, and they do about 1 million units every year, which need to be installed, and they have about 5,000 to 6,000 channel partners in the country. Now, all of these people need access to a system. All of these people need to be able to access central information like pricing. How much do I charge for certain spares? How do I get a new ticket that's being logged with the brand? So all of this is done through a custom application made for individual dealers and service partners, along with a separate login for their technicians. So everybody within the ecosystem is digitized, while all core information is originating from CRM. Another such example is of a dealer management application. So again, you're running your core operations inside the Zoho suite by using, say, CRM, and you want to extend the ability to dealers to be able to order stuff from you in real time. So this could mean a multiple product implementation where you have CRM to manage your customers and make sure that whichever customer is placing an order is associated or assigned to the right dealer so that they can service them, and have like a central inventory or a regional warehouse-based inventory being managed in Zoho Inventory. But all of this coming together to give digitization to your dealer network so that they can place the orders with you, they can service orders that you assign to them, and basically take stock of whatever their business needs are by this single application. Another example that we have around digitizing a large third-party sales workforce. So this is being used by about 22,000 people in the field every day. Now, these people are required to go out into the field, talk to prospects, and see if they're interested in buying farm equipment or not. Now, as you would imagine, it's not a very, technically heavy job in terms of the proficiency that it requires, but it needs to be simple so that everybody who's on the field has a mobile device. They're given 4 options on the screen, and they just do that without complicating things. So that's an application that was built by Tafe for their field sales staff, which are about 22,000 people in the field, going into different places every day, talking to new customers, capturing information about their interests on buying a tractor, when do they need to buy, what model are they interested in, while making sure that the entire experience is seamless and easy to use for these salespeople. Now, let's see what went behind all of these three examples that we saw. So, Slate is our front end deployment service. This helps you deploy any kind of modern age front end framework like, say, an Angular, React, Next, Vue, Svelte, Ember, and any other framework that you may have. You're able to connect to your GitHub repository and deploy this repo in a matter of a few clicks. What you get is an application that's highly available and offers server-side rendering. Now, a lot of data being generated for this. So not a lot of data or not all the data is being pushed into CRM. So let's say if I talk about the sales example, there'll be some profile-based information that you'd want to keep on your own ecosystem and not push everything to CRM. This is where we have a relational database in the Catalyst data store, which does not require any provisioning, no maintenance, gives you flexible querying as you would do in any SQL database, and gives you advanced search and metrics about how you're using the database. And we also have a non-relational NoSQL database. So if you're a developer familiar with the MERN or the mean stack, you'd be able to do that using Catalyst. Now let's see what we're up to with data. What are we doing with data? A few of you who are familiar with QuickML. So QuickML is a no-code machine learning model builder inside of Catalyst that helps you build a regression, a time series, or a classification model based on data that you could have absolutely anywhere. So what it does essentially is that it abstracts the entire pipeline building process. So you do not have to write any Python code, any Python notebooks. All you need to do is connect a data set and then use a drag and drop mechanism to build your own pipeline, right from the data cleaning part, data merging part, to pre-preparation, preparation, assigning the right algorithm, and then finally having a trained model. Now, what we've seen is that the traditional model building process takes up to about a week to build a fully trained model. Whereas in QuickML, you're able to do that inside of an hour without losing any kind of control over the functionality or the tweaking that you'd want the algorithm to have. So you can import data from anywhere. We've increased the number of data sources that we had since last time. And we're also working on introducing a analytics connector and a data prep connector as well, which will probably take our data options significantly higher. But most object storages, databases are things that you can connect QuickML to and import data. Not only do you import data, but you could set an update frequency so that anytime there's new data or at a specific time interval, you could refresh this data and it would retrain the model and be ready with newer predictions. Now, let's see how we've used QuickML for different customers. So this is a nutraceutical seller in the US. They sell a lot of vitamins. They had sales data for 4 years going back in CRM. So they knew exactly what customers are regular customers, how frequently do they come back again, what are the products that they're buying, and how their entire journey has been in terms of the number of products that they've progressed to buying. Now, on the basis of this, we put all of this data into QuickML and built a recommendation engine. Now, what happens with this recommendation engine is that I give the recommendation engine a date range. So we're at the 15th today. So let's say I give it a date range of 16th May to 30th of May. Now, on the basis of that input, it will give me the customer IDs that are expected to make a purchase within this date range, along with the suggested quantity of items and the item IDs. So it will tell me which customer is expected to make a purchase within the next 15 days, what items and in what quantity. And all of this data is pushed back into the CRM as an opportunity. So their outbound calling team knows that what product can be pitched to whom, and in case they want to tweak the numbers and maybe go in for a larger order, they can offer a discount right over there. And all of this is powered by all past data that they already have in their system. So this makes it really powerful from an upsell or a cross-sell perspective. How many of us watch movies? We've done one such thing for a multiplex chain where they have a lot of data around who's bought how many tickets, what movies have they watched. We put in the metadata of all the new upcoming movies and it gives a list of people who are most likely to watch these movies, along with the cinema that they're most expected to go. So again, this works great for multi-city, multi-theater cinemas that exist, but something that we've built with QuickML, which is like a movie recommender. Now we have some interesting things lined up for QuickML where we are making it easier to import data from multiple sources at once. So again, you can tap in multiple sources, bring all of that data over here, do custom joins like how you would in an SQL table, and view all of these sources like how you would in a file explorer. So data entry is, or importing all the data is the first step, and we've tried to make it super easy for you so that you don't face any challenges in bringing data from multiple sources, joining it in order to make a model. So what that effectively does is that removes the need to have a data lake somewhere, so you can still have disparate data sets, have them come into Catalyst separately, but join them before they go into your model. So that makes it a little more easier for you. And what's best is that you can use the AutoML feature within QuickML so that it can run an auto model for you. So what that does is that it puts the entire data set into a bunch of different simulations, puts it through different types of pipelines, different types of algorithms to figure out the best fit in terms of the efficiency of the model, depending on the target that you're going to be predicting. Now, let's have a quick look at our roadmap. So everybody is betting big on AI. One part of it is already covered because we're doing quick ML, which is machine learning. But we've also recently announced our public roadmap on GitHub. So in case you're a GitHub user, you could view our roadmap over there. And we also have an issues section over there. So in case there's a feature that you'd like or a feature that you're not too happy with, you could leave comments over there and we'd be happy to take it up. Now, around AI generated code. So I showed you Slate, which is our front-end deployment service. We're also launching a AI code gen ability for Slate. So this will let you give in a few prompts and generate a custom front-end and deploy that on Slate within a few clicks. This is expected to be launched in June. We're opening early access for Slate, which is plain and simple Slate, in the next few weeks. We're also bringing automated code generation to the Catalyst data store so that you don't need a DBA anymore, or you don't need to go and Google that how do I most effectively create this database. You give a prompt and it will give you the entire data structure that you can implement as a table. Here's a video of the Slate AI code gen in action. So it'll give you a code studio inside the Catalyst console where you'll be able to give a prompt. Basis the prompt, it'll ask you for approvals in terms of how it's building the entire front end. You'll get the ability to look at the code as well at the same time. So you can see all the code is being generated right now. Once it's done, it gives you a preview of what your web app is going to look like. All the tabs, you can check if they're working. If you want some modifications, you could go back to the prompt and have it change those. So we're adding a filter over here. So the interesting part about having the code side by side is that while you're doing, while you're letting AI do most of the heavy lifting, you'd still want to tweak a few things in your front end, and it will still allow you to do that. So once you're ready with, or when you're good with what your front end looks like, the one that's been generated, you're then able to deploy this in one single click. So right over here, you click on deploy, it shifts over to the Slate tab, and it completes deployment. Once it's deployed, you get a Catalyst URL for this. And once you have the Catalyst URL, you'd be able to use domain mapping in order to map it to a custom domain. So this has been sped up by about 1.5x, but you can well imagine that you could have this kind of a front end built and deployed in a matter of 10 minutes. Within this code gen feature, while we will have a Quen model included, but we will also offer the ability to bring your own key. So in case you want to connect it to your own subscription, in terms of whatever LLM you prefer, you'd be able to connect to that and use that features inside of the Catalyst console. Right. We're also focusing on LLMs. So you'd be familiar with the concept of MCPs, which are Model Context Protocol servers. So that's a server that you need to be able to connect to your client, to your LLM, to your APIs and your database. So using AppSale, we are providing the ability to host your own MCP server so that you'd be able to build AI assistants not only for the Zoho ecosystem, but for other ecosystems as well by using Catalyst. Also, within QuickML, we are bringing to you the ability to host custom LLM instances. So again, if you want to host a DeepSeek inside a private environment, you'd be able to do so within QuickML. Now, some of the other key features, not so snazzy in terms of AI, but some which are much requested features. We are coming out with runtime support so that if you're building in any other language apart from Java, Node, or Python, you would be able to run that with your own Docker image. So you bring your own Docker and you run it on Catalyst AppSale. That will make sure that you can run any programming language, any framework that you'd like on Catalyst. The second most important one is around a cloud managed Postgres database instance that we're going to provide. So this will work very similar to our data store option. It's just that it will be Postgres in its truest form. You'd be able to move on to latest versions, no learning curve in querying, and get the kind of data APIs and object relational mapping that you may want for your application. So Chris has been one of our earliest users of Catalyst from the US. Chris has deep expertise in cloud computing. He even teaches developers at the collegiate level in software development practices and how do you go about designing databases, how do you design middleware. He's internally called the middleware man at AspenTech because he's done so much within connecting different disparate systems together, bring information into Zoho, take information out of Zoho. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking to you about what Chris's journey was. So Catalyst offers a varied set of services and features, and it's not necessary for you to start with everything. And that's what Chris did. He started off by using API gateways, functions, circuits, and the data store in order to build basic middleware. So these were point connections between two different applications, used the API structure, enabled API gateway for routing and throttling, and slowly eased himself into circuits in order to manage recurring functions and how do I manage beyond the time limit that each function has. He then moved on to exploring circuits in a deeper fashion, used the connector option that we have with different Zoho applications. So again, in case you don't know, you need not do the token handling manually if you're connecting to a Zoho application within Catalyst. We have a service called Connectors for that. And that's exactly what Chris did with CRM. He moved one step further beyond that and then started to use the CRM event listeners function, which has now been enhanced into its own service called Signals. So he was basically responding to events happening in real time in CRM, moving them around the Zoho ecosystem to other ecosystems by making use of cache, DevOps, API gateway to build a more robust and more secure middleware. And eventually he's now doing something really complex where he has multiple data systems connected to a middleware. So he's taking in data from a bunch of places, doing ETL, managing concurrency, and building middleware that can scale not only from an on-prem, but from multiple cloud systems and bring all of that information into the Zoho ecosystem. As closing notes, how do you identify a Catalyst opportunity? I hope that all of you resonated with the entire internal scale and external scale examples that I gave you. But how do you identify if this is a Catalyst opportunity? So whenever there's a requirement, you ideally see if a Zoho app can solve for it. The answer to that is either a yes or a no. In case it's a yes, you try and see if it's a single Zoho app opportunity or a multi-Zoho app opportunity. If it's a single Zoho app, you ideally go ahead and check if all requirements are met out of the box. In case they aren't, you ideally check if there's a marketplace extension for that. In case it still doesn't exist, you could write to us and we'll help you build that from scratch. If it's a multi-Zoho app opportunity, we want you to check if you're using any addition or feature only for one particular service or one particular use case or edge case, in that case, chances are that that can be fulfilled by using Catalyst. In case you still have to use multiple Zoho services, you want to check if there is a custom integration that's required, and that's something that we can help you with. If you are not sure, if you know for a fact that this cannot be done by Zoho, it still can be done by Catalyst. 7 out of 10 use cases that we receive are things that you can do on Catalyst and build a custom solution for. So I think the bottom line to this slide is that you just write to solutions@zohocatalyst.com and we'll help you out. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for being such a patient audience.